gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Ms. Darlene Jones.
Well, hello everyone. It's so great to be back and, to start the year off right. Today I am here to talk to you guys about a subject that's very passionate to me, and that is financial literacy. And when I say financial literacy, does anybody, what comes to your brain? What does anybody think of?
Saving.
Savings, absolutely.
Reading like your books for your taxes and bank account information?
Absolutely. Taxes, your bank account, being knowledgeable.
General money management.
Money management, absolutely. You guys are certainly on the right wave. We will talk about banks in Canada. And what is the reason why you would actually put your money into a bank? What do you think is the number one reason?
Interest.
Interest, yes. Interest is one of the reasons.
I don't know, just keeping it like safe and stuff?
Absolutely, keeping it safe. Security is the number one reason that you would put that there. So if you think about if I received my whole year's salary as a farmer who sold my crops, I definitely want to put that in a safe place, right? I definitely don't want to put that under my mattress. I want to make sure that it's safe. So one of the reasons that we actually are put in that category of being conservative is that we actually do have safeguards in place to make sure that your money is protected. And so has anybody seen this particular symbol, this purple symbol? CDIC? Into 2018, which is when I actually started to work for the loan fund, this here actually became mandatory that any place that like a banking institution or a financial institution that belonged to CDIC had to actually display this particular symbol. And this here indicates that, yes, they were part of an insurance corporation. What does insurance do for you?
Protects you against fraud.
It does. The point of insurance is to make sure that if something should happen, and most likely things that could happen in this, because we're most likely online, the biggest thing that we do worry about is actually cyber fraud, right? So if something should happen that, I don't know, the apocalypse happens and all our money gets drained out of our bank accounts and all those good things, CDIC would actually step in and make sure that you are restored to the place you were before this breach happened. The other really important entity that we have here in this province is what we call FCNB. And if you have a notebook, I'd really encourage you to write it down in big letters, fcnb.ca. This particular website is a provincial website that is the Financial and Consumer Services Commission. And that there, it has a lot of information for you so that you are, as a consumer, know that you are doing your business with someone who is safe. For an example, if you were working with someone who is a real estate agent, one of the things you can do is you can go to fcnb.ca and you can actually look them up. The other thing that happens on this particular website that is really, I think you'll find beneficial in the future is say you want to actually buy a car. You can actually go to this website, fcnb.ca, and you can figure out how much is my car payment going to cost and how many years is it going to take me to pay for this particular car, right? So sometimes these are really good places for us to stop and to pause and to kind of really think about some financial decisions. Because, we certainly don't want to fall in that category of, I paid $3,000 for a car that didn't pass inspection that I'm still paying for 10 years later, right? We want to make sure that we avoid those particular instances and we're actually doing some good stuff with our money. If you think about it, how long do you actually have to look after your money? Till you die, right? Till death do us part, to infinity and beyond, right? It's important that we actually know where our money is going. And one of the things that we want to make sure it's going is it's going in our pockets, right? It's going here. It's not actually going into the bank, right? Because banks, they make enough money. We don't need to worry about them, right? We need to really worry about ourselves. The other way that banks make money is by actually loaning, to actually provide a loan and charging something called interest. Anybody familiar with interest? Okay. Is there anybody in here who would really admit that they are a saver? Any savers? Yeah, you guys are awesome, right? People who can actually save money. I envy you in the best way possible. But there are people who actually save their money and they take it to the bank. And why do we take it to the bank? For security, right? For security and to earn some interest, right? So somebody comes along, Mr. Van Beek comes along and he says, yeah, I saved all this money. I want to give it to you. And as a banker, I'm so thrilled. I'd love to take your money, Mr. Van Beek. Thank you so, so much. And then, of course, right on his heels comes Miss Wood, who says, listen, I need this car. It's awesome. I need it today, right? And as a banker, I go, I love it. Of course, I'm going to give you money for that car. I'm so excited for you as well. But you need to pay this much money back. And you need to pay me some more on top of that, right? And of course, Miss Wood is so excited because, listen, that car is going to be cruising. I can't wait to get out there. And she's fine with paying more. And as a thank you to Mr. Van Beek for being the good saver, I give him some more money back, right? But I'm going to keep 2 for myself as a bank, and I'm going to give 1 to Mr. Van Beek. And because he's a great saver, he thinks that's super fantastic, right? Everybody's happy. But one of the things that we are finding in this world is that Canadians are actually in trouble. And, this is one of those moments where I say, don't do as we did, right? This is one of those moments where you guys can really grasp on the fact that, I really need to make good decisions with my money from the very beginning. Because by doing that, I'm actually going to put myself in a better position, right? Because what we see in the loan manager's office right now is he has 2 categories, right? So it says up to their necks or over their heads, right? And so that's where Canadians are, right? We actually hold too much consumer debt. And by consumer debt, I mean things that aren't secure. So if you think about a mortgage, do you think a mortgage is actually secure? It is. It is actually one of the most secure loans that you can have, right? Because if you're not paying towards your mortgage, you're paying towards rent. So for the most part, mortgage is considered very secure. Go ahead.
What about a student loan?
A student loan? Yes, a student loan. And I get asked this all the time. And, lots of people go, up and down with that. But I will let you know that people who do go and get their post-secondary education do see a higher salary from a very young age. So if you actually go and get your post-secondary education, you will see within the first 2 years, at least a $5,000 more increase on your salary than someone who does not. And by post-secondary, I don't just mean university, okay? You can actually community college, so just using your student loan wisely. But that's where we need to be really important as students too, is to use it wisely, right? But if we want entertainment, that usually is a good idea to have a part-time job for, right? Because we don't want to be paying for our entertainment for the next 10 years of our career, right? So these are, just some simple things to kind of keep in mind.
Is it true that if you have a student loan that it has either no interest rate or very low interest rate, and that you don't have to start making payments until you have your job after you finish school?
Yes.
Which makes it different than every other kind of loan you could take.
That is very true. And one thing to remember about a student loan is when you actually finish your schooling, they expect you to start paying it back within 6 months. If in 6 months you are not making the salary, and it is clearly on their website, if you're not making that salary, you can actually apply for interest relief. And they will actually not charge you any interest or expect you to make any payments on your student loan for that particular time. One of the things that I always say to people, though, is if you're not getting charged any interest, guess what? Every $20, every $10 that you put on that actually lowers the amount that you actually will owe. And it means that you're going to pay less interest in time. So instead of maybe paying 3 bricks more, you're going to just pay 2 3/4 bricks more, right? And those dollars add up. And as I always mention to people, you know, what do dogs do when they're very happy? They wag their tail, right? They're happy, they're excited, they bark, they wave their tail, they jump up and down, right? Well, guess what? When you're in charge of your money and you're saving money, that's what should be happening, right? You should be barking and you should be jumping up and down and wagging your tail. Excitement all around because I'm actually saving money and I'm actually getting ahead of all of these particular interest rates and not falling into those traps of actually being in debt. Let's talk a little bit about our relationship with money. Like, what do you aspire to have with money? Anybody have any ideas of, you know what, in 5 years' time, I'd like to see this? Or in 10 years' time? As entrepreneurs, why do you want to be, you know, in charge of actually earning your own income?
I think it's easier to track when you know what you're spending and where.
Absolutely. That is like the best answer ever, right? When we know where our money is going, it's really easy to keep your feet right here on the floor, right? And no matter what your income is, you need to make sure that you're spending it wisely, right? And there's some books available like The Wealthy Barber. And, you know, if you just think about the title, right? Here's somebody that we would not consider to make a huge income, but yet because he was frugal with his money, he actually did, you know, retire better than he lived while he was working. There's two ways to look at, you know, our relationship with money. We can be people who are really like, I'm not spending more than $4 for breakfast. Or there's people who are like, I'm spending $40 every day for breakfast, right? And so we have these savers and these spenders. And we really want to strive to be in the middle, to actually be in that place where, as you mentioned, we actually know where our money is being spent. When I know where my money's being spent, I'm wagging my tail. I'm excited about it. Or maybe I'm not, right? But it allows me to make decisions or to change things. One of the things that I always mentioned, you know, as I mentioned, we love to work with entrepreneurs. And one of the things that I always say to them too is even in your business, knowing exactly where your money is by actually, you know, sitting down on a monthly basis and looking at your business finances, it actually helps you to save money because say you were spending money on advertisements, for instance. Well, if you sit down and kind of look at that on a monthly basis, you might actually go, you know what? I didn't get any return on my investment into that last month. So maybe I need to adjust that. I need to actually make a pivot and make a change. And the same thing applies to our personal life as well, right? If I'm spending $40 on breakfast, right? But yet, you know, my kids didn't like it and we fought over it and, you know, it was a terrible service. Why am I doing this, right? It makes me take that stock and say, yeah, I need to change this a little bit. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about budgets, which is actually one of the things that I love to talk about, and I don't understand why other people do not, right? So what do you guys know about budgets? What do you think about a budget?
I try to limit the amount that I spend on certain extremities that I don't need, like clothes or coffee, and everything else I put into a savings account for school or for things that might not be good.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But Dave Ramsey, he says it this way, a budget is a plan that tells your money where to go instead of you wondering where it went, right? And some of us on payday are kind of going, what happened to my money, right? Maybe we're searching through the couch, right? Just hours after we had money in our particular bank account, right? And we're searching through the couch looking for some change so that I can at least get a $4 breakfast, right? Because I deserve that. And so that's the thing about our money is we need to actually come to that balance place where, you know what, I'm happy with the way I'm spending my money, right? And I'm not just like earning money to pay bills and die, right? Like there is some enjoyment in there. So there is a place to be in the middle. And one of the best ways is to actually set up a budget. As students, one of the things that I really suggest to people is I call it the 50-30-20 method. So 50% of your income should actually go to savings, right? It should just go right into a savings account for school. Most likely that's the biggest thing you want to do. It doesn't have to only be for school. It doesn't have to be, it could be for a trip of a lifetime, right? You know, myself, I've taken a couple of trips of a lifetime by saving some money, right? So I've been to Australia, I've been to Scotland. You know, I'm hoping to go back to Germany next year in 2023. But one of those things is I know how I'm going to save that money, right? And when I think about that, I go, yeah, do I want that $6 Starbucks or do I want to go on a trip of a lifetime, right? Where do I want to enjoy my $6 Starbucks? That's another question that I ask as well. So putting 50% of your money away, yes, as students, most likely you will spend it on your schooling, right? And remember, every penny that you save, right, that you don't have to borrow from the bank is pennies in your pocket, is money in your pocket in the long term, right? The other 30% should be money that you just spend now, right? I'm going to take 30% because again, you know what? I didn't go to work tonight just to save my money, right? I want to enjoy myself. So 30% of that should be what you spend now. And 20% you can actually put away for things like your birthday, Christmas, right? You should buy your mom something on Mother's Day, right? They say that there's going to be 2.6 million roses will be spent next week for Valentine's Day, right? So there might be somebody on your list, right? So that's where that particular money can actually be spent. So yes, it can be something that you want, in the near future, right? The 30% is what I'm spending today, right? That's going to be gone out of this pocket like as fast as it came in, right? But I know that there's 20% there for mom's birthday. I'm never going to be late on mom's birthday or forget that it was her birthday and didn't have any money to spend on her, right? I'm going to make sure that that's all taken care of. Okay. And just as we kind of wrap up here, I'm going to talk a little bit about compound interest. And we talked a little bit about what interest actually does. But has anybody heard or seen this particular gentleman? Albert Einstein. What do we know? He's pretty smart, right? If any of you have taken physics, which I've had the displeasure of having to do when I was in public school, right? I learned all about some theories of relativity and things like that. But one of the greatest things that he talks about is that one of the greatest forces in the universe today is the power of compound interest, right? And again, I'm going to use my bricks here to talk about that. So one of the things that compound interest, how this particular thing works, is if this is my money that I saved and I actually put it into the bank, what does the bank give me for actually putting money, for actually saving money? They pay me interest, right? Because they're super excited that I am like Mr. Van Beek and am a saver, right? And as a reward for actually saving my money and putting it in their bank, they're going to pay me interest. So they're actually going to give me 4 bricks, right? So now, if I keep this money in here, right, which I'm going to do, that means that they're now going to pay me interest on the 4 bricks, right? So that means the next time that they actually pay out the interest, they're going to give me maybe 1.5 bricks more, right? So this is what we call leveraging. So when you take your money, has anybody ever heard of an expression called passive income, right? Passive income, usually people refer to it as you making money without putting a lot of effort into it, right? And as entrepreneurs, we want to make sure that we are bringing in some kind of passive income, right? So keeps things floating when perhaps we're waiting for a sale or we're actually investing in another part of our business, right? We need to keep the home fires burning, right? Keep the wolves at the door, as I say. We want to make sure our bills and things are still getting paid. And so sometimes that can come from a passive income. But one of the things about interest is it's a passive income. You are actually making money without realizing it. And we talked about Mr. Buffett and how he actually is invested into Coca-Cola, and he is actually getting paid a dividend. So for every share of Coca-Cola that anybody owns, right? It's not just Mr. Buffett. They will actually give you money on a quarterly basis. So that is how he is actually making money, by just having his money invested in Coca-Cola, right? So he's actually making more than just the interest. He's actually making a dividend as well. He's getting a little bit more. It's kind of like a thank you for your loyalty, right? Thank you for actually investing in our company. We want to make sure that you are happy and you stay, right? Because the longer you stay, the more secure we are. It just means that another year around the sun and another nice big bonus check as well for that. So I'm going to pull up here and give you a real life example. How many of you are thinking that you'd like to be a millionaire? Yeah? Yeah, absolutely. So everyone's got their hands up here, of course, right? And how many of you think that you could be a millionaire? Okay, we're on board here. I'm actually going to show you how, using compound interest, we can all actually become millionaires. So in order to calculate how much interest or how much money that you actually are going to earn, we need to talk about how much you're saving, what is your rate of return, and how long are you going to leave this money here, right? So I'm going to ask you guys, how many think $1,000 is a lot of money? For the most part, if I said $1,000 in a year, is that a lot of money? Yeah, it is. But is it doable? Is that reasonable? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to put in here $1,000. Years to grow. On average, I'm going to say, I'm going to use 40 years. Just because I like to use 40, because most of you, if you go into post-secondary education and then by the time you kind of get your dream job or you actually get your business established, I'm going to say you're 25. And what's the age of retirement in Canada? 65, right? So again, public school math, 65 minus 25, we get 40 years, right? So we're going to go with 40 years. And we're going to talk about an interest rate. Does anybody know what is an interest rate right now?
8%.
8%, absolutely. We definitely are seeing that. Now this here, when I talk about interest rates for this particular situation, I am talking about things that are actually invested in the stock market. And I know that you guys will talk more about that as you go through your course and you'll understand a little bit more. But it is if you were invested in Coca-Cola, right? It's not if you just put your money in your Scotiabank and you get 0.5% interest rate, right? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about it actually being invested in something that is going to compound and give you some interest. And so 8% is not, and again, we're talking about over 40 years. It's not out there, right? Over a 40-year period, you're going to see your money go up and you're going to see it go down. And if anybody, I think it's coming up to the anniversary. I noticed one of my LinkedIn things was about, how the market went down 2 years ago and how it has actually come right back up, right? So there are things in place for that. Any guesses how much money you're going to have? If you put $1,000 a year for 40 years at 8% interest, how much money are you going to have when you retire? Anybody care to guess? 70? Okay. Let's just do a little calculation. You're actually going to have about $301,000 in 40 years. Okay? Does anybody know what the average Canadian today, what they are retiring with? How much money? It's approximately one half of that. $162,000 is what Canadians are actually retiring with today, right? And if you think about that, $1,000, it's a lot now, but honestly, any of us adults in the room will tell you, really, $1,000? That's pretty good if that's all I had to save at this point in time, right? Because if we look at it and say we do the average thing and we wait till we are 40 to actually start saving, we now have 25 years before we retire. And how much money are we actually going to have? Can you see the number up there? $85,000, right? So in order to actually make sure we get somewhere around the 300, we are probably going to have to put even $2,000 a year only gives you 171, right? So you're actually going to have to save more money in order to actually make up the difference, right? So that's why time is on your side and why I keep saying, you know what? Like, don't do as we did, right? Really look after yourselves. And honestly, if we think about $1,000, let's go with $100 a month, just because I went to public school and my math is not great. But $100 a month. Does anybody know what minimum wage is in this province? $11.75, and it's actually going up by $2. So we're going to go up to $13.75. So, right around the $14 mark. So if you actually went to work and you had to earn $100 a month, how many hours would you have to work at $11.75 even an hour? I'm just going to go, 9 hours. I was going to say, we'll just pretend it's $10 an hour, okay? Right? You'd be working 10 hours a month to actually put that $1,000 or $1,200 away starting now. And if you start now, it means that you finish earlier. And if you finish earlier, it means you can retire earlier, right? So let's look at some situations to see how we can use this to make sure that we are millionaires.
So that's for one compound annually. Is there other opportunities where it compounds more than once annually? And if so, what are the outcomes in that situation?
So yes, absolutely. Really good question. And yes, let the math work for you, because if we talk about things like Coca-Cola stocks, they actually pay you dividends, right, on a quarterly basis. So you can actually be getting money, not necessarily always your interest, but you could be getting, actually be getting extra money that goes in there. So if you think about if you did $4,000 a month for 40 years and it actually compounded 4 times annually, which is quarterly, right? You would actually have $1.256 million, right? Is everybody going to have a party on that? Right? No? And the other thing that I always like to mention as well is don't get too caught up on what this number can be. Okay? So if you put $2,000 away for a year, every year for 40 years, you end up with $600,000. Okay? Is that $1 million? No. But are you going to spend all $600,000 on the day you retire? I want to be invited to that party, okay? There's going to be balloons and hot air balloons and helicopters and, I don't know, Grand Canyon. What are we doing, right? If you're going to spend $600,000 in one day, right? Go ahead.
This isn't accounting for the risk factor, right?
This is not, no. This is like pie in the sky, absolutely, right? But it's still the risk of you putting away $2,000 a year for 40 years is going to put you in a better situation than not, right? So the risk is you not doing it.
But with the COVID situation where a lot of people had their funds in retirement funds and pension plans, and then the stock market dropped because they weren't in. Right. Most of the investments are into the stock market, and didn't it hurt a lot of them?
It's because, again, we are learning from our mistakes. So 2008 was the worst correction in the market since the Depression. And I personally was involved in the industry at that time, and I held a lot of hands because what people want to do is they want to sell. They're very scared, right? But we want to hold your hand and ride out the storm, because within 16 months, the market actually came back. So again, if we're talking about 40 years, yes, you're going to have 16 months where things are not going to be great. The pandemic, yes, it did cause the market to actually go out, but it actually recovered within about 15 months, right? What is not recovered because of ongoing situations is just people actually being back to work full time. And that is what's going to hurt, again, because if you can't put your $2,000 away, you're right, you're missing out on those years of compound interest. So just to kind of look at that risk, right? To say, yes, it maybe doesn't compound as well as you want or in the period that you think it will. You'll see that by 6%, we actually come into $348,000, right? So again, not the high amount of money that we want, but yet we're going to be all right, if we have $348,000 or $350,000, right? So this is a calculator. This is like really pie in the sky. It's certainly not taking into all the risk factors. But again, when we look at things, we kind of have to weigh it out, right? And at the end of the day, putting your money away, saving, and making sure you're preparing yourself for your future makes the most sense, right? There will be things that come and go.
How old do you have to be to start investing in those types of programs that can earn you 7 or 8%?
Okay, very good question. Actually, if you are actually, has anyone ever heard of a retirement savings plan, an RRSP, registered retirement savings plan? Okay. If you are actually earning money, i.e. you have a job, you are actually able to put your money into an RRSP without, you don't have to, doesn't matter what age you are. So if you're 12, you could actually own an RRSP if you have income that you're earned income. So if you're working at McDonald's or Subway or at a retail store and you are actually have earned income, you can actually put money into your RRSP, and you can start to actually invest right away.
What would you say? Would you prefer the tax-free savings account over an RRSP? I know they're not new, but they're newer, and I think they're a better option for a lot of young people.
They are actually probably a better option. The only reason I mentioned an RRSP is because you can open an RRSP at whatever age you start to earn income, right? If you wanted to open a tax-free savings account, you do have to wait till you're 19. Or your parents can actually open it in trust for you, okay? And then at 19, it will actually transfer to you. So there are some advantages to that. But again, the biggest thing we want to always say to people is save the money. No matter what, just save it, because you are going to make money by actually having it in the bank from a young age.
With the RSP, once you have it, like say you're 12 and you get a job, and then you're 13 and you don't have a job, but you already opened one? How does that work?
It just sits there. It just stays there. Okay. Yeah. So if you did, the other thing what are the biggest advantages of an RRSP? There's two advantages to an RRSP. The first one is if you decide to go to school and you have an RRSP, you can actually just borrow the money from your schooling from your RRSP, right? So again, you're borrowing money from yourself, which will be better than actually borrowing the money from student loan, right? Again, you're not going to pay as much interest on it, but it also means that you have that capital in place. And you'll have 10, I think they've actually increased it, I'm not positive, but I know you had 10 years to actually pay it back. So if you actually did save $10,000 in your RRSP, you can take that out to go to school and pay $1,000 back every year. And, that means you still have that capital in place, right? You're actually, again, we use the word leveraging or borrowing from yourself, right? And you're actually still going to have an investment. The other advantage to an RRSP is the first-time home buyer. So again, if you want to buy a home, you can actually borrow the money from your RRSP as a down payment, right? And again, you're not losing your capital. you're actually just borrowing it out and you keep paying it back. And, again, you're making sure that your money is working for you, right? You want to make sure that you go to school and you actually get a home. So I've given you lots of information. And, again, as I always say to people, you know what, you can't get it all in one moment, right? Because how long do we have to look after our money? Till we die, to infinity and beyond, right? Till death do us part. And even beyond that, sometimes we have to take care of our affairs. And so it's really important that we know where our money is going and we don't end up like pitiful Pauline here, right? Standing in front of an ATM machine going, please, 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 kind sir, give me some money, right? We want to make sure that we actually know where our money is and that it is actually wagging our tail. It's actually making us bark and jump up and down. And of course, it's not, there's no elevator to success with this. You have to take the stairs. And as we mentioned with the compound interest, 40 years. It's a long time to be committed, right? It takes commitment, and it's something that, I keep trying to do it, I want to do it, and you're not going to do it all perfect, right? We're not all going to be Warren Buffetts who just, wear our Armani suits for 10 years and buy a $4 breakfast, right? We're not always going to be people like that, so we want to make sure that we are looking after ourselves and also remembering that, it's not always going to be perfect. And as we mentioned, through the pandemic, we've seen some crashes in our system. Things did not go smooth through all of this, but that's when we have to really have in mind what our goal is, and we need to stay the course. And as always, I thank you guys so much for your attention. And, do understand that, us at the Loan Fund, we're interested in you and what you're doing. And we certainly would love to sit and chat with you about your business and about your money, because it certainly does matter to you and to us. Thank you so much.